Hello, all, welcome back to Project Mastery Podcast. Most PMP candidates don't fail because they cannot draw a network diagram. They fail because the exam throws tiny schedule traps. Float versus free float, leveling versus smoothing, fast tracking versus crashing. Today we make those traps disappear. Schedule management is basically plan it, build it, baseline it, then control it, like your job depends on it. Because in real projects, it does. We'll move on to the first step. Know the schedule process flow. If you don't know the order, the exam will make you guess. Here is a mini scenario. You already have a WBS and scope baseline. What is next? You need to define activities, then sequence activities. Moving on to tip number 2. Separate activity list versus schedule model versus schedule baseline. Baseline is approved. Model is updated. List is the raw inventory. Here is a scenario. Stakeholder asks, are we behind? You need to compare actuals to baseline, not the latest draft plan. PDM relationships. Finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish. Most are finish to start relationships, but exam loves the uncommon ones. Here's a scenario. Testing can start when coding starts. This is a start to start relationship. Moving on to the next step. Dependency types, mandatory, discretionary, external. Discretionary means you choose it, so you document it. Here's a scenario. Team prefers UI before API. This is discretionary, could be optimized later. Leads and lags are risky shortcuts. Leads and lags can hide work and complicate tracking. A scenario here. Overlapping task causes rework. What do you do here? Consider removing lead, decompose work, reduce risk. Critical path is the longest path, least float. Critical path can change after updates. Don't memorize it once. An example of scenario here. A non-critical activity slips but consumes float. May become critical later. Total float versus free float. Free float protects successors. Total float protects the finish state. A mini scenario. Delay impacts successor start. You consumed free float. Crashing versus fast tracking. Crashing buys time with money. Fast tracking buys time with risk. Example of a scenario here. Deadline is fixed. Budget is flexible. In this situation, crashing will be the best option. Leveling versus smoothing. Leveling respects constraints and may extend schedule. Smoothing stays within float. Example of a scenario. There is a resource conflict. Finish state cannot change. In this situation, you prefer smoothing first. 3-point estimating for uncertainty. When uncertainty is high, ranges beat false precision. Let's take an example here. New tech task with unknown complexity. During this situation, you need to use 3-point estimate. Refine your assumptions. EVM schedule signals. Knowing the sign is not enough. Know what to do next. Example, you have an SPI of 0.85, which means you are behind schedule. You need to analyze the root cause and take corrective action. Schedule contingency time buffer versus management reserve time. Schedule contingency time buffer. This is built into the schedule for identified or known risk from risk register. Project manager can use it as a planned response. Management reserve or time is being allocated for unknown. It typically requires sponsor or management approval and often triggers change control if it affects the baseline. An example scenario. Vendor delay risk happens on risk register. Use planned contingency or time buffer. Another scenario. Unforeseen regulatory hold appears. In this situation, you need to escalate request management reserve or raise change requests depending on baseline impact. Change control for baseline updates. You don't update the baseline because someone is unhappy. A scenario. Sponsor wants new finish state. What do you do in this situation? You need to raise a change request, do an impact analysis, get the approval, and then finally perform the updates. Compression without trade-off is a trap. Any shorter schedule has cost, risk, quality implications. A scenario. Example. Client wants 2 weeks saved, no other changes. In this situation, you need to evaluate whether you can use crashing or fast tracking and come up with trade-offs. Control schedule means proactive variance management. Control is not reporting, it is early correction. A scenario where trend shows slippage. What do you do here? You have to take corrective actions. You need to update the forecast and communicate appropriately. Remember, the big exam wins. Process order, baseline versus model, relationship logic, float types, leveling versus smoothing, crash versus fast track, and change control discipline. Here is a mini quiz. If SPI is 0.9, are you ahead or behind schedule? I think you have found out the answer. The answer is you are behind schedule. Which may extend the schedule due to constraints. Is it going to be smoothing or leveling or decomposition? You would have found the answer by this time. The answer is leveling. Overlapping task to save time is called either crashing or fast tracking or smoothing. You would have found the answer. The answer is fast tracking. We have come to the end of the podcast. Comment your score and tell me your next topic, whether it's going to be cost, quality, or stakeholders. Hope the knowledge is valuable. Thank you for tuning in.